Do you know what really sucks? Is sitting down to edit your project and realizing that you have gaps in your coverage or shots missing. You need to have a really good, specific, and detailed shot list. Head over to filmmakersecrets.com/shot list, SHOTLIST, to get a killer shot list template along with some training where I show you step by step exactly how to use it.
I believe if you are born to be an artist and to express yourself artistically, you don't ever give it up. And once you accept the fact that that's just who you are, it will drive you for the rest of your life.
Filmmakers have the power to evoke emotion, inspire thought, and drive universal change in this world. So how does a filmmaker thrive in an environment that is almost intentionally designed to bring you down? That is the question, and this podcast reveals the answer. What's happening, filmmakers? It's George VK. Welcome to Filmmaker Secrets podcast, episode number 25. And I am extremely excited to introduce my next guest, Tammy Kaitz. She is an amazingly talented actress who she had an amazing role in the Feature Man Camp, which if you've listened to the very first guest interview that I did with Dan Cummings, he's also in that. You can see the poster behind her if you're on video. So Tammy, go ahead and say what's up to our filmmakers and reveal the one filmmaker secret that you've been keeping from us.
Hi, filmmakers. Oh my God, I love hanging out in the hood of filmmakers. I would say the one thing that maybe gets in people's way, or the secret, is I believe if you are born to be an artist and to express yourself artistically, you don't ever give it up. It's not like you put in a year and you throw up your hands. It will always be a part of your soul. And once you accept the fact that that's just who you are, it will drive you for the rest of your life to surround yourself with other artists.
That's a beautiful sentiment, Tammy. Thank you so much for that. So let's go, take me back to the moment that you got the spark to become an actress, to become a storyteller, to envelop your audiences in your stories. Tell me that story.
Okay, well, I kind of don't ever remember doing anything different. I started putting on plays in my backyard. And when I was 3 and had my appendix out, they wheeled me from room to room and I sang to all the patients. So I think I just always had that in me. And then when I was a preteen, it's funny that you and I are meeting because I'm actually a third generation Denverite that moved out to LA many years ago for my acting career after college. But when I was a preteen, I was looking through the Denver Post and I saw auditions for Peter Pan at a theater 10 miles from my house where I was raised in Southeast Denver. And I got on my bike and I didn't tell my mom. And this is before cell phones. And I rode my bike to the theater and auditioned for Peter Pan, and then had to put money in the payphone for my mom to pick me up, and ended up doing like a half a dozen shows at that theater. And I just always did that. I went to school. I followed my boyfriend, who my husband, to CU, Boulder, University of Colorado, Boulder. I was a theater major. And in between my sophomore and junior year, I wanted a little bit more. So I went to a professional acting school in London and then came back and completed my degree and moved out to LA after I did a show. I did an Arthur Miller play. So I did theater around Denver. I did an Arthur Miller play after I graduated from college after the fall. And I just thought, I want to do this professionally. And I don't sing and I don't dance. I sing very poorly. And so I headed to LA, and that's where I've been. And I've just never, ever, ever veered from that path. I just knew that this is what I was supposed to be doing.
There's so much to unpack there. I love your journey. I love the story of your journey. You mentioned theater, which is actually just happens to be my first love. I've been a performer all my life. I like to say, how do you believe that theater experience informed your acting in film?
Well, growing up doing theater in Denver, I really felt very, very, very strongly that I should be doing this professionally and not community theater. And when I grew up in Denver, there was really only community theater. And then when I moved to LA and started taking classes, I immediately got involved in a theater group. I've been in many theater groups and I've done a lot of theater in LA. And, it's so different. And in theater, there's actually, don't tell anybody, but there is a particular love for me with theater in terms of starting on page one and then ending when the play ends. And in TV and film, it's not like that. Your scenes are going to be all over the place. And so it's really hard as an actor you have to keep reminding yourself the continuity, the entire script, which is really hard though. But when the curtains part and you start from the very beginning of the show telling a story and then you complete telling the story, it's almost a richer experience. But don't tell anybody I said that.
I'll keep it a secret between the two of us. That's awesome, Tammy. So let's fast forward now to you starting to dabble in acting, within stories of films. But then you start to get really, really serious. And what was that moment that you felt like I meant to be? Was it a project or a particular moment on a project that really gave you that idea that I'm going to be acting in film?
Well, I really have, like I said, I've never veered. I just always felt in my gut that this is what I was supposed to be doing. And I always felt that I would be successful at it. Many years later, I have had some wonderful successes, but I have a lot of periods where I'm not working and I'm looking for work. And so I've just always, it's not that I felt driven, but I have been very driven. I've been very professional. I've owned my business. I have owned my art and pursued it with a lot of gusto. I just think that it was just this thing in my soul that I just knew. And I started doing theater when I moved here right away. And then I actually am in the first, really, I think it would be considered the first indie film. I'm in Robert Townsend's The Hollywood Shuffle, and I'm in one little scene. And my scene was picked for The Tonight Show and all the talk shows and shown on the Academy Awards and everything. And a couple of years ago, I ran into Robert Townsend at a event he was speaking at, and I stood up in the audience. And I said, "Hey, Robert, Tammy Kaitz." And he came down and picked me up and twirled me around, and he couldn't believe I was there because we hadn't seen each other for a long time. But I think it wasn't like this aha moment because I just always knew that this is what I was supposed to be doing. Gotcha. And at the same time, I'm a mom and I'm a wife and I do volunteer work and I garden and I cook. And I'm a really super duper balanced person. And I'm also an artist that happens to be an actor.
It's amazing. You mentioned the word gusto, and I kind of want to back up a little bit. With the initiation of this interview, we randomly happened to meet on Clubhouse through this mutual connection of the feature film Man Camp. So just a quick little backstory. Just 2 days ago, I think it was, I was on Clubhouse and you popped into a room and, raised your hand to get up on the stage to speak. And I want to get to the actual project that you were talking to, but I heard the words and I acted in a feature film called Man Camp. And that obviously triggered me. And I was like, hold up, who is this? And so we connected through Instagram. And I think about 15 minutes later, we had this interview scheduled, which I think that is the pure definition of having that gusto in your art. So I think that's a great sentiment that you shared.
Yeah. But even I can tell you, even with Man Camp, I can tell you a story in terms of like, there's no, I don't have, it's not that I'm not shy, but it's just knowing what I need to be doing. So I saw the breakdowns for Man Camp, and the part of Teresa, which is the female lead, was written 50 to 52 or 54, mother of 3 boys in their 20s, Mediterranean looking, can do comedy, drama, and is comfortable with sexy romantic scenes. And I looked at that and I was like, duh. Like, this is me. So I went on IMDb Pro and I looked up Nate, and I looked up Scott, and I looked up Dan Cummings. And those are all Nate is the director, and Dan and Scott are the producers. They also play my son. But so Dan had his email on IMDb Pro, and I emailed him, and I didn't say, may I audition? I said, you've got to meet me. And they came to LA a couple of weeks later for just general auditions. And I walked in that room, and I just knew that part was mine. And they had me do a comedy scene and a serious scene. And Nate, the director, had to turn away. He got really choked up. I just knew that part was mine from the moment I read the breakdown on it. It just described me. So, it's just kind of this internal knowing what I can do as an artist.
I love hearing that story. It's almost like opening up a menu of a DVD where you get the behind the scenes features, the special features. I love kind of hearing these internal stories of how things came about and how certain people end up on set or connecting with other people, because it's never the same. It's always a new story.
Yeah. I was cast, but I didn't really realize I was 100% cast. I wasn't sure if they were looking for a bigger name on the other line. And then finally Dan said, no, Tammy, it's yours. I mean, like, it's yours. And then I happened to be in New York with my husband. We were walking around, and I get a text from Dan saying, do you know who Pete Gardner is? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, he's played your boyfriend. He signed on. And I was like, ooh.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Some good news. That's awesome. So you get cast and you start shooting. Obviously, I would say 95% of the film was shot here locally in Colorado. How was that being back? What was the whole experience getting shooting with? Tell me those stories. I want to hear.
It was just such a full circle moment. I mean, I'm from Denver. My siblings live in Denver. Our children live in Denver. My aunts and uncles and cousins, I'm from Denver, and I was cast in LA and brought into Denver to shoot this movie. And Denver is where I started my artistic journey. It was such a full circle moment. And then by the time I started shooting, the guys had been working for a week. So there was lots of testosterone, and, I'm the one that adds a little estrogen into this film. And they had, in some ways, was a little bit difficult because there had been this unbelievable bonding between the men, Pete and the three boys, the three guys that play my sons. And so I definitely kind of realized that I didn't have a lot of time to shoot my stuff, and they had these 7 days together. And so I just, made sure I was really prepared, and Pete definitely really bonded with the guys. But it was interesting. The minute the camera turned on, there was lots of chemistry between Pete and I, but we didn't talk a lot when the camera was off. And we talked some. He doesn't live too far from us. He's been married. He's got 2 kids. Our lives are similar, but he really was so tight with the guys that I had to just kind of let him have that. But the minute the camera was on, there was a lot of flirting, and we just did our jobs that the well-written parts required.
That's just shows, the experience that goes along with seasoned professional actors that have that ability to, without preliminary rehearsals, without too much time on set, to actually build a decorum with the actor that you're supposed to, play, that you're falling in love with.
Yes.
And then be able to get on scene. And as soon as that record button is pressed, or even preferably just before, you're in character and you're able to show that chemistry. So that's amazing.
Well, also, I'd love to share with you. So a couple of years ago, I got a phone call. I was just sitting at home reading a book, and an actress that I've known for years, but we weren't particularly friends. She said, I'm emailing you a script. You need to read it immediately, and the director's going to call you. And 48 hours later, I was on a plane learning 75 pages, starring in a horror film, shooting in Maryland, freaked out. I'm not a particularly quick line study person. And I don't know if that's from theater and just giving myself into the plays, but I'm just not, that's just not my forte. And I was panicked, and talk about no continuity. The only thing I do is rip out all my pages and put them in the order we were shooting in. And I played a cougar that has my way with young boys. And then I chop off their heads and put their heads in the trunk of my red Hunkmobile convertible that I got in my divorce settlement. Wow. Anyways, I had to, and one of the first scenes was a axe scene. I kind of like had the axe like a girl. They had to tell me to, but talk about like fear and just kind of trusting the artistic process. Yeah. That was a trip.
And organization goes a long way.
That's called The Bone Garden. And Tracy Savage plays, we co-star in the movie. Came out a couple of years ago.
That's great. So within Men Camp, what would you say was, besides the lack of time, obviously for schedule conflicts and purposes, what was one of the biggest roadblocks that you had playing that role or being on set? How did you overcome that roadblock?
Well, I just knew the part was mine. There are times where I have auditions and it's really a struggle. And I feel like, maybe I gave a good audition, but I know that it's a little bit of a struggle. And then there are times I'll get materials when I have auditions and it just fits me like a glove, like a beautiful dress. Like it is just, and I felt that the moment I saw the breakdown, I knew that this part should be mine. And then when I read the script, I just felt that I really understood. I had boys. I had two sons in their 20s. And in the movie I have, there was so much I understood about the character. It just felt comfortable. I'd say probably the toughest thing is, Scott Cruz, who plays the youngest son, is a broad comedy actor. And then there's Pete, who's a broad comedy actor. And it was hard not to want to do the same, to join them in that. And there were moments where I felt like what I was doing was kind of boring, but you can't all be doing the same thing. I had to remind myself. So where they actually probably enhanced what I was doing a tad, I had to remember that, I was kind of the heart and the solid part of the movie, the part of the movie and the story that gave it heart. And so that it was almost like a horse, that wants to run away. I had to make sure that watching Scott and seeing what he was doing, watching Pete, because Dan was played it much more down to earth like I did. And then Eric is just so wacky in terms of what he did as the youngest son. But I was like a horse. I had to rein in what I was doing. And there were a couple times where I felt like I played it too big and kind of did another take and I brought it back.
Well, it's definitely a balance, and I want to congratulate you on that film. I think it's just a wonderful performance. It's a great, good feel good movie. So thank you for sharing those stories. I'd love to move on to what is happening in your creativity at this very moment. Oh my,
well, the pandemic happened. So for us actors, we have had to learn to self-tape at home. So my husband, who's not in the entertainment business, has learned to be my cameraman and be my reader and help me with lighting. But we've actually turned, so we have a son that he lost his bedroom. He lives in Denver, so it doesn't matter. But we turned his bedroom into my self-tape studio, lights and cameras. And, I have all the stuff, painted the wall the right color. And actually at first I was kind of resistant, but actually have so embraced this self-taping at home. You can do so much more. If it's a scene where you're drinking, I can get a cocktail glass and put a cherry in there, and I can be putting my makeup on. If I'm ignoring a husband at a scene, I had an audition like that the other day, and there's actually so much more I'm doing. I don't know what other actors are doing, but I'm like creating a little environment for myself. So there's that. And then I have the life rights to a story that was in the news a number of years ago. And initially we wrote a treatment. We got the rights and we wrote a treatment that actually kind of went far, but we didn't have a script. And about a year and a half ago, I co-wrote a script with a woman that I met at a Women in Film event. And we kind of nurtured a relationship. And then she asked me to be a part of a reading at her house. And I didn't, even though I knew she was a writer and a producer, I had never read her material, and her writing was so good that I asked her if she wanted to co-write the script with me. So we did that. And then I brought my talented friends in to my living room. And then I had other talented friends that just wanted to listen to it. And we did a reading of it. And then Teresa Richardson and I went back in and fixed the script. And so now I have the script, and now I'm a little shy versus as an actor, I know what to do, which is why on Clubhouse, I've been getting some unbelievably good advice. But now I need to try to get the script into the right hands, into the hands of the right people. And so that is something I'm doing. Also, in the back of my mind, there was a short film that I was going to be a part of that ended up not getting made. And in the back of my mind, I would love to rewrite that story and finance it myself and maybe shoot this short. It's kind of never left me. I was cast in it. It was just a 2-person, beautiful story, a hooker that a father hires her to devirginize his son, who is not interested in girls. And it's really the soul of the boy and the soul of the prostitute, coming together and talking. And it was a very powerful little script that never got made. And part of me would like to make that. So that just might be something I might do.
That's awesome. I love hearing short film ideas because it's such an interesting form of storytelling. You're limited to a certain amount of time. Technically, I think 40 minutes, 50 minutes is still considered a short. Those certain thresholds, the parameters, and they seem to keep bouncing back and forth. Typically, I think 30, 40 minutes. But that 40-minute film to me is a little too much. So when you're thinking about fleshing out a story, now that you're kind of, I'm assuming pretty deep into screenwriting and telling stories, character development, meaningful conflict, all those things that make a good story. How do you work on a short film when you have as grand of an idea as that? How do you pare the things down and simplify?
Well, what happened was, I think for the writer, it was too close to home. And so he decided he never wanted to make it, and actually ended up not being in the entertainment industry and moving away from LA. And I think that but when the script fell into my lap and I had the opportunity to audition, and then I read it, I thought, and then I was cast in it. I had worked on another film. They brought me in because I had shot another film with the fellow who wrote the other film, wrote this. And I said to him, I'll produce this. Let's make a movie. And it was so beautiful. It was probably like 14 minutes or something. It was a short. And we had a meeting. I pulled in all of these people that I know that are so talented to be a part of it. Actually, one is a childhood friend from Denver. Our parents double dated, so I've known him my entire life, and he's now a DP in Los Angeles. He's been a DP for years. And his name's Bradley Lipson, and I was going to have Brad film it, and I just pulled in. I had somebody as a location scout, and I think for the writer, out of respect, I think it was just too close of. It was a story that it was too painful for him to want to tell. So, he decided he didn't want it told. And so I think there's another way to not steal his idea, but to tell it and write it in my own version. I am not a writer. That's one of the things. I could be a good producer. Can't sing, can't dance, not a great writer, but I can surround myself with people that are very gifted in that way.
And that's really how you, I think, propel forward is the ability to bring talent together into a congruent, well-oiled machine. That's amazing. Tammy, I want to thank you so much. I could keep talking to you for a while, but I'm trying to keep these shorter, just for people to be able to quickly pop it into their ear and get some value from all the amazing guests so thank you so much for being on Filmmaker Secrets podcast. I have one last question for you, and this one's a doozy. What is your desert island movie? If you could only watch one film for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh my God. Well, if I wanted to cry, there is no question it would be Imitation of Life, which is an old movie from the 1950s. And if I wanted to laugh, I think it would be Elf. or maybe Man Camp.
2, 3. I'll give you 3 movies you can take with you to the island. Tammy, where can our filmmakers go to find out more about you?
So I have a couple places. I have a personal website, a professional website, tammykaitz.com, TammyKaitz.com. And I would say the projects I've done in the last couple of years, I have reviews and interviews I've done and podcasts. Hopefully I can get a copy of this and put that up. I'd love to do that. And then I have a YouTube channel that I don't do much with, but it's got my old stuff. It's got stuff from the 80s and 90s because I thought, I did a season on Knots Landing when I was younger. I want the Hollywood. I wanted my kids. I don't think they've looked at it. I wanted my sons. So I wanted them to be able to look at it. And so I've thrown everything, commercials that I've shot. And so it's under my name, and it just has all of my stuff from my entire career on there.
That's the nostalgia. Yeah. I love keeping old stuff around just to see
I even have a
started.
Clip. Yeah, I even have a clip called Hairstyles because it just shows over the years the wacky, long hair, short hair, big hair, short hair.
I love that. That's great. All right. Well, Tammy, I want to thank you for your time, your knowledge, the value that you brought to the filmmakers. I hope that everybody is listening, taking notes, and taking a lot away. Thank you so much for being on Filmmaker Secrets podcast.
Keep creating, everyone. Just keep moving forward and embrace your art and keep creating.
If you like that, then you are going to love my Cine Racing Challenge. This is a 7-day filmmaking competition where your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to write, shoot, and edit a short 60-second film in just 7 days for your one chance to win with over $10,000 in prizes. So head over to cineracing.com. That's CINERACING.com to get registered. Spots are filling up fast, and the timer is ticking before the next Cine Racing Challenge launches. So be sure to head over to cineracing.com right now to get registered. I'll see you over there.